Major headlines today: Ukraine continues its aggressive push back against Russian forces, with defense intelligence confirming a series of attacks on Moscow's military bases. As tensions escalate, U.S. President Joe Biden labels Russian leader Vladimir Putin as a dictator. In response, Kremlin deflects with a comparison of public support. Meanwhile, a smokescreen disrupts operations on the Crimean bridge, a significant link between Russia and Crimea, signaling possible drone attacks. In politics, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky challenges former U.S. President Donald Trump to share his peace plans for the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict. Elsewhere, Russia and Iran are forging stronger bonds despite sanctions, with the Russian defense minister suggesting that the pressure is proving ineffective. In a tragic incident, a cargo ship in the Black Sea hits what seems to be a sea mine. The crew is safe, but the cause of the explosion is yet to be confirmed. Back in Ukraine, a Russian drone attack sets an oil refinery ablaze, but no casualties are reported. On the global stage, Zelensky makes a powerful appearance at the UN General Assembly, urging world leaders to unite against Russia. Biden echoes his sentiments, emphasizing the importance of supporting Ukraine's defense. But concerns arise at the G7 as Russia and North Korea hold clandestine discussions. At home, a government shutdown looms over the U.S., threatening to disrupt military aid and training for Ukrainian forces. Yet, some good news surfaces as Ukraine reportedly liberates over 54% of its territory occupied by Russia. However, civilian casualties continue to mount, with Russian missile strikes claiming more lives. Lastly, a CNN investigation reveals Ukrainian special services likely behind drone strikes against a Wagner-backed militia near Sudan, indicating the far-reaching impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Hello, listeners! This is your host, Emily, with the day's latest and hottest news.
And I'm David News Talk, here to share my insights on these unfolding events.
We're glad to have you with us on Hot Topic. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. Now, without further ado, let's dive straight into the headlines. So, let's delve into the nitty-gritty. Ukraine has confirmed responsibility for a series of explosions in occupied Crimea. According to spokesperson Andriy Yusov, these actions were carried out by Ukrainian security and defense forces against the occupiers' military targets. The ultimate goal, he said, is the deoccupation of Ukrainian Crimea. It seems that Ukraine is actively seeking to disrupt Crimea's role as a logistics hub for Russian forces by conducting various operations at sea, on land, and in the air. Over the past month, Ukraine has escalated attacks on Russian military bases and installations, including air defenses, in Crimea.
That's an interesting strategy. By weakening the enemy's positions, they're presumably hoping to facilitate their ultimate goal of deoccupation.
Yes, exactly. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the Kremlin responding to President Biden's characterization of Putin as a dictator. They argued that Biden has never enjoyed the same level of support as Putin. Kremlin spokesperson Peskov noted that Russian citizens have consistently given Putin strong support and mentioned that Putin has never resorted to personal insults against his colleagues.
And how does this compare to the dynamics in the United States? I'm interested in understanding the differences between the two leaders in terms of public support and their approach to political discourse.
Well, it's certainly a different landscape. Unlike Putin, Biden's political career has been marked by challenges, including a fiercely divided political climate. The comparison between the two leaders' level of public support is a complex issue, considering the significant differences between the country's political systems and cultures. As for the discourse, it's not unusual for sharp words to be exchanged in the political arena, but it seems the Kremlin is keen to highlight Putin's refraining from personal insults. Moving forward with the updates, we've got news out of Kyiv. Saboteurs were reportedly responsible for an attack on an airfield near Moscow. 2 airplanes and a helicopter were blown up at the Kholovsky Air Base, which is about 19 miles northeast of Moscow. Notably, these aircraft belonged to the 354th Special Forces Regiment and had been actively involved in shooting down attack drones over the Moscow region. Ukrainian defense intelligence suggests this sabotage will have a significant impact, as the damage to these aircraft will prevent their quick recovery. Interestingly, Russian media reported a fire in the vicinity of the base on Monday, but the details were scant.
That's a significant development. The disruption of Russian aerial capabilities could potentially tilt the scales in favor of Ukraine.
Meanwhile, traffic across the Kerch Bridge linking Crimea with Russia has been suspended, according to local authorities. At the same time, a smokescreen appeared in the area of Sevastopol. It's a common tactic used by Russian authorities in Crimea to disrupt attempted drone attacks. Sevastopol Governor Mikhail Razvozhev said that aerosol masking means were being used and reassured the population that such measures were safe.
This indicates they are under serious pressure. When an area relies on smoke screens, it suggests they are trying to obscure their movements and operations from overhead surveillance or attacks.
Indeed. The situation continues to evolve rapidly. We'll keep our listeners updated as more information becomes available. Now, to add some context to the situation in Crimea. The Kerch Bridge, linking mainland Russia with the Crimean Peninsula, has been a repeated target throughout the conflict. It serves as a crucial supply route for Russia's war efforts in Ukraine, enabling the flow of people and goods into occupied territories. In the past, Ukraine has launched attacks on the bridge, causing damage and, according to Russian officials, civilian casualties.
It's clear why that bridge is a key strategic target. By disrupting its function, Ukraine can affect the supply flow to Russian forces in occupied territories.
Turning our attention now to the political arena, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged former U.S. President Donald Trump to publicly share his peace plans. Zelensky, in an interview, suggested that if Trump has a way to end the war between Ukraine and Russia, he should share it immediately to prevent further loss of life. However, Zelensky emphasized that any peace plan involving Ukraine giving up territory would be unacceptable.
A valid point. The price of peace should not be the sacrifice of territorial integrity.
Indeed. The Ukrainian president made it clear that if Trump's idea involves giving a part of their territory to Putin, it does not constitute a peace formula. Trump, who is currently the frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, has claimed that he could broker a deal to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. But as of now, the details of this supposed deal remain unclear.
It's going to be interesting to see if and how Trump responds. This war isn't just a military conflict, it's a chess game of diplomacy and politics too.
Absolutely. And as the situation evolves, we will continue to keep our listeners informed with the latest updates. Zelensky's appeal for peace plans comes at a critical time as Ukraine is facing challenges in the United States over support for the war. A section of the House GOP conference is openly resistant to providing Ukraine with additional military aid. It remains to be seen whether House Speaker Kevin McCarthy will approve more funding.
Could you give some examples of what this additional military aid might entail?
Sure, this additional military aid could include things like protective equipment, medical supplies, and communication systems, all of which can help bolster Ukraine's defenses. It could also encompass intelligence sharing and training, as well as more direct assistance like weapons, ammunition, and even vehicles. In other news, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, during a visit to Iran, proclaimed that the cooperation between Moscow and Tehran is reaching new highs. Despite opposition from the US and its Western allies, the two countries seem committed to their planned activities. Shoigu also noted that the pressure of sanctions on Russia and Iran is proving ineffective.
What does this new high in cooperation involve?
Well, it can involve a range of things. At a basic level, it might include military exercises, intelligence sharing, joint operations, or technology transfers. In a broader sense, it could involve political cooperation on international issues, economic partnerships, or even aligning their strategies in areas of mutual interest. Lastly, a crew of a cargo ship in the Black Sea had to be rescued after the vessel presumably hit a sea mine. Romanian authorities evacuated 12 crew members of the Togo-registered vessel Sima. In an unfortunate incident, a Russian drone attack sparked a fire at an oil refinery in the central city of Kremenchuk. This was confirmed by Dmytro Lunin, head of the Poltava Region Military Administration. Fortunately, no casualties were reported.
What kind of impact could an attack like this have on Ukraine's infrastructure?
An attack like this could have severe implications. It directly affects Ukraine's ability to process crude oil into usable products like gasoline, diesel, and other important petrochemicals. In the long run, it could also lead to shortages or price spikes in the country. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky, in his first in-person appearance at the United Nations General Assembly, urged world leaders to unite against Russia. He stressed that the invasion is not only about Ukraine, citing the blockade of Black Sea ports that hampers Kyiv's ability to ship grain.
Could you provide an example of how a blockade like this affects the global stage?
Absolutely. A blockade in the Black Sea ports could lead to a significant reduction in global grain supplies, as Ukraine is one of the world's major exporters of grain, especially wheat and corn. This can trigger a global surge in food prices and contribute to increasing food insecurity around the world. Zelensky also underscored Russia's attempts to weaponize energy, such as trying to block gas and oil supply to European countries. He called for collective action, stating, "As nukes are restrained, likewise, the aggressor must be restrained."
How might Russia be weaponizing energy?
Russia is one of the largest producers of natural gas and oil, and many European countries are heavily dependent on it for their energy needs. By withholding or disrupting these supplies, Russia can exert political pressure, create economic instability, or cause hardship to the citizens of these countries. It's a troubling example of how energy resources can be used as a strategic tool in geopolitical conflicts. U.S. President Joe Biden, in his remarks at the United Nations General Assembly, emphasized that supporting Ukraine's defense is not just an investment in Ukraine's future, but in the future of every country that values sovereignty and territorial integrity.
What does this essentially mean?
It's a strong statement of solidarity. The president is saying that any attack on a country's sovereignty, whether it's Ukraine or elsewhere, is an attack on the international order itself. He's encouraging all countries to view Ukraine's defense as a shared responsibility, because the principles at stake apply to everyone. Meanwhile, concerns are brewing at the G7 foreign ministers' dinner about the possible alliance between Russia and North Korea. This follows the recent meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin.
What could this potential alliance mean for the international community?
An alliance between Russia and North Korea could have significant implications. It could potentially embolden both countries in their respective geopolitical ambitions, and it could also alter the balance of power in the region. In a cautionary note, a U.S. government shutdown could potentially disrupt military aid and training for Ukrainian forces. This comes as lawmakers have acknowledged that they won't be able to pass all 12 appropriations bills before the September 30th deadline. On a brighter side, General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, announced that Ukraine has reclaimed more than 54% of territory occupied by Russia since the invasion in February 2022. However, the ongoing conflict continues to cause civilian casualties, with at least 6 civilians killed in a recent Russian missile strike on Kupiansk, in the Kharkiv region. Lastly, a CNN investigation found that Ukrainian special services were likely behind a series of drone strikes and a ground operation against a Wagner-backed militia near Sudan's capital. This suggests that the repercussions of Russia's invasion of Ukraine are extending farther than the direct conflict zones. We want to extend our thanks to all of you for tuning into our podcast today. We hope the analysis and discussion about the latest events have provided some insights. We appreciate your interest and engagement. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and activate the notifications so you don't miss any of our future discussions. And if you find our content valuable, share it with your friends and family. We would love to hear your thoughts and comments.
Absolutely. And remember, our podcast airs daily, so plenty more intriguing news analyses are on the way. I don't want to spill the beans, but some interesting discussions are lined up. So don't forget to tune in.
We're so grateful for your time and attention. We're excited to bring you more insights and discussions in our next episode. Emerson and Davey, stay in the loop, keep your eyes on the news, our channel's content will amuse.